We've been waiting for this moment, and it's finally here. We could talk about live sports. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Delahanty, and I am a co host here on the Let's Debate podcast. We thank you all for tuning into our show this evening. We have a lot to talk about. I want to get right into it. I'm going to throw Kyle right into the mix. Kyle, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on, Nick? What's going on, everyone else? Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the Let's Debate podcast. If you guys haven't gotten a chance to check out our previous episode, Nick and I decided to change things up. We discussed the Madden 21 player and team ratings. So if you're a football fan, you're a gamer, or you're someone who just enjoys, playing Madden each year, and check that out. While you're at it, head over to our social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search up Let's Debate Podcast, Instagram at Delahanty Media, and Twitter at Let's Debate Pod. And then last but not least, head over /stores/Delahanty Media. Go in there, check it out. Got some nice sweatshirts, T-shirts, long sleeves. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it back over to Nick. But like he said, we have a lot to talk about. Baseball, basketball, football back. I'm excited. So, Nick, take it away.
Make sure you guys interact with us during the show tonight. Send us your thoughts about what we're talking about. Again, there's a lot to talk about. And when we were deciding on a topic, we took it more as a Sports Center type of feel. Sports Center talks about everything and anything going on, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Since last week, there's so much going on. Baseball's back. We had a big trade in the NFL. The Knicks have a new coach. The NBA season is currently underway. As you guys are listening to us, I hope you guys have the game on the ESPN stream. But let's get started with, I think, the biggest news from the tri-state area, and that is the Jamal Adams trade to the Seattle Seahawks. And now, you're talking to two Jet fans here. Let's put that disclaimer out there. And it is a situation where it didn't go well for the Jets. The Jets and Jamal clearly were on different pages, but he finally gets his wish, it seems, and he is now a member of the Seattle Seahawks. Kyle, give me your initial reaction to the trade, and what did you think when it first came out?
So I think it's best for me right now to probably just go on a small rant and express my thoughts and feelings on the whole situation in general. If you've been tuning in each week, it doesn't even have to be a football topic. I feel like you might be picking up on the fact that Nick and I are diehard Jets fans. We were huge Jamal Adams fans, or we still are, but he's not a Jet anymore. And his name would kind of slip out of our mouths because the rumors the past few months have been the Jets are looking to extend and break the bank for Jamal Adams. The Jets are looking to possibly trade Jamal Adams. I would say this. A few months back, if you took a poll of Jets fans and asked them, would you like to extend Jamal Adams or trade him? I'm going to say 90 to 95% of Jets fans would have said they wanted to keep Jamal Adams. Right? Now, I think there's pros and cons to the whole situation. Obviously, me being a big Jamal Adams fan, I wanted them to keep him. But since the trade came out, weirdly enough, there's a part of me that's actually okay with it, and that might be shocking. I know probably to Nick too, because I was very big on some of the things that I said I wanted to keep him. Now, my problem with it is that we drafted Jamal Adams with the 6th pick in the 2017 draft. That's not a spot in the draft that safeties typically get chosen at, which means that the sky was the limit for Jamal Adams, and we were able to take him. Now, with that being said, Jamal lived up to, I would say he surpassed the expectations. He's everything you want in a player, everything you want in a draft pick, especially the way the Jets draft. He did everything on the field, gave it his all every single play, I would say, every single game. He was a vocal leader. He was the person who would call out the Jets and say that the culture is trash, changes need to be made, the coaches need to go, the management needs to go. That's something that you want. They're not going to listen to the fans. They're going to listen to the players. So for him to do that, I know some fans got a little ticked off by that. Some fans actually, because of that, wanted him traded. My biggest problem with it is the fact that we had a player like him, and now because of trading him, this is going to be the second generational defensive talent that the Jets have drafted and traded in the past decade. They didn't draft this decade, but they traded him away basically after his rookie deal. And this is all the Jets' fault. It's not their fault literally because they traded him. It's their fault because since drafting Jamal Adams, they failed to build around him and make the Jets a contender, or at least a step closer to being a contender. If the Jets were going to keep him, even though they traded him, I know the Jets know that Jamal Adams is worth every single penny that he's going to get from the Seattle Seahawks. The problem is, and this is where I've become somewhat okay with it, is if Adams, as good as he is, the Jets are nowhere near being a contender. They have so many holes to fill. So paying a safety $17 or $18 million a year, yes, it's great to have him, but with or without Jamal Adams, you weren't going to be a good team. So I think Joe Douglas decided to trade him away in the best interest of the long-term success of the team. And I do like what we got in return. You know, we traded Jamal Adams and I believe a 4th-round draft pick in the 2021 draft to the Seahawks. And in return, we received a safety, Barry McDougald, I believe the last name is. We got a 1st-round pick in the 2021 draft, 3rd-round pick in the 2021 draft, and a 1st-round pick in the 2022 draft. So last thing I'll say is, on paper, I like what our GM, Joe Douglas, did with this draft in the 2020 draft. I do. We're giving him 11 draft picks now next year. That includes 2 first-round picks, a 2nd-round pick, and 2 third-round picks. And in the next 2 years, 4 first-round picks. So, yes, I would have loved to keep Jamal Adams, but knowing that we now have cap space, we now have a load of draft picks and good draft picks, it's all up to Joe Douglas to do what he's got to do. The first thing he needs to do is fire Adam Gase. After that, we'll worry about fixing the team. So, I talked about the poll that the Jets fans would have taken, 90 to 95% of them wanting to keep Jamal Adams. I would say now, in my personal opinion, I think it's split. Based on what I'm seeing on social media, I think 50 on this trade. They're upset we've got rid of him, but they're kind of happy with what we got in return. Nick, what do you think?
I just have to say this before I get on my little rant, because I'm just happy we didn't have a show for a couple of days, and here's why. When the trade went down, I was very upset because I am a very big Jamal Adams fan. The shirt that I have on currently will show you that I love this guy. I love everything about him. I've loved him since his college days. The Jamal Adams narrative in the New Jersey, because they are the New Jersey Jets, not New York area, is a book that was ruined before it was finished. And I have to blame one person and one person only for this, and that's Joe Douglas. Now, I get it. Joe Douglas looks like the hero. The Seahawks overpaid for him, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But when you're looking at the grand perspective of things, ever since Douglas came into town, he ruined the relationship with his best player. From the trade deadline last year, when he assured Jamal Adams that he wasn't on the trading block. But then the rumors came out that Dallas was very close to acquiring him, and that Jamal was basically left to be lied to. So that hurts, number one. Then Jamal asked for a contract extension, which I'm a firm believer. If you have a contract, I believe that you should play it out, that you agree to those terms. It is what it is. But in the same token, if I'm sitting there and I'm in Jamal's shoes and I see McCaffrey, Myles Garrett, who's not the perfect citizen in the world, Patrick Mahomes, all these guys from my draft class getting paid, I'm sitting there and I'm getting upset about it because I'm the best safety in the league. I want my money too. And he has a personal understanding of it because of what happened to his father. If you don't know, his father played for the Giants, had a string of injuries. He was a really good running back, but after the injuries, never really panned out. And I have a very close friend, I'm not going to name him, that played in the NFL. And he used to tell me all the time, the NFL stands for not for long. And I used to just think, maybe it's because his career was short that he says that. But seeing this, I understand it now. And I understand where he was coming from. Guys try to get their money when they can. And credit to Joe Douglas, because what he did was turn Jet fans against Jamal Adams. The media turned Jamal Adams against Jet fans. They made him out to be public enemy number one, which made the trade acceptable. Before the offseason, if you would have said the Jets traded Jamal Adams, the fans would have rioted. But based on how Jamal acted, which I don't agree with necessarily, and overall how the media pertained and made him out to be this public enemy, and they still are, with the reports, oh, no, none of his teammates really care. They're all bashing him on social media. They made him out to be an enemy, which he isn't. And for the Seahawks, they made a great move. I think right now you have to say the Seahawks won the deal. Because if you're a Super Bowl contending team like them, They were a yard short of being the number 1 seed in the NFC last year. You add a guy like Adams, that really helps you out. And if you're expecting to compete, those picks are going to be late rounders anyway, first rounders anyway. So you're willing to give that up. It's not like you're giving up a top 10 pick for him. And the Jets, there's a lot of uncertainty. And honestly, as a fan, how could you get excited about a first round draft pick? Kyle, you and I know, we sat through it for years, how they never draft well. And when they do draft well, the guys who should stick around never do. Their last 5 or 6 first round draft picks haven't lasted more than 4 years in New York. So you're telling me that you traded this premium asset, a guy that you know is a guarantee, for 2 unknown picks that probably won't even last 3 or 4 years on the Jets roster. I have to get excited for that? I just think that it was a bad job by the organization. I think that they got lucky that Seattle bailed them out in terms of such a good trade value, because if not, I think Joe Douglas and the organization would have got a lot more grief for this trade than they did. He looks like the hero, but let's remember, he's the guy that set this in motion. He's no hero. And if that's an indication of how he's going to manage his team in the future, the Jets are in deep trouble.
Hey, you make a lot of good points there. I mean, we were in agreement on some of the things. Like you said, you said right now, Seattle won the trade, which I think it's fair to say because Jamal Adams is a proven superstar. He's an all-pro safety. And that's what I was saying before, is that it's going to be up to Joe Douglas to see who wins this trade, or at least if it fares equally, because if he's able to hit on these draft picks, and we know, like I also mentioned, and like you mentioned, the Jets don't have a track record of draft picks. But on paper right now, I know these players have to get on the field and play, but I did like Joe Douglas's draft. I did. I think he made a lot of nice decisions, a lot of nice moves in there. He picked the pieces that are needs. So we're going to have to see down the road. Yes, I'm upset we lost Jamal Adams, but I'm trying to, and this is crazy to say because I'm not like this with the Jets, I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. The thing that I like most is he had a nice draft on paper. We have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years. I know that Seattle's a contender, so they're going to be late first-round picks. But I'm not going to lie. Every time it gets closer and closer to the year, I sit around wishing that we had multiple first-round picks, because you see certain prospects that you're like, man, I wish we could have another pick for this guy and fill that need and fill that need. So I'll say this. I'm not happy that we got rid of Jamal Adams, but a part of me is happy with what we got in return. And we do have space to sign players. I don't know if you are completely against Joe Douglas, but I have faith in Joe Douglas. Based on how the Jets have gone about things in the past, I mentioned Darrelle Revis. Now I mentioned Jamal Adams, the 2 generational defensive talents that we've had, the 2 biggest draft picks that we've had. Yes, I lose a little bit of faith in the organization, considering every time we get a good player in the draft, this happens. So why should I trust that these next 4 first-round picks are going to be, no matter how good they are? Because it doesn't get better than Jamal Adams. So I get that, but I have some faith in Joe Douglas. I think some of the decisions that he's made in the past year or 2 I like. I'd like him a lot more if he got rid of Adam Gase, and I have to kind of smirk every time I say that because I just dislike the guy. So, yeah, you know what? The trade is up in the air right now. That's why I said before, it's 50-50. People are split on it, and you made a good point. The media and the Jets made Jamal Adams, look like the bad guy in all this, when I feel his complaining, his comments were justified. He has earned an opportunity for a contract. He's put everything out there for you, and he deserves his money, and he deserves every penny that he's going to get, and he's going to get that from Seattle, who I think it was smart of them to do this as well, because you now have your cornerstone on offense in Russell Wilson. You're going to have your cornerstone on defense in Jamal Adams. Like you said, a yard away from the number 1 seed. They went to the divisional playoffs last year?
I believe so.
Divisional round. I think they lost to Green Bay.
I believe so.
You have Russell Wilson, you have Pete Carroll, you're always in contention for a playoff spot. So now you add the best safety in the league. It was a good decision by them. So only time's going to tell, but right now I'm trying to be positive and optimistic about it.
I like your optimism in regards to the Jets, but I just go and I hate to do this, but I go to past practice and how they've operated for years to come, and the common denominator is the Johnsons are still in charge, and regardless, it's going to be the same situation. The Jets didn't want to pay Jamal Adams. Let's put that on the table. I don't care what Joe Douglas says about in his press conference. Oh, we never told Jamal we were going to offer him a contract extension. Obviously, if the guy, his agent, and everybody involved in the Jamal Adams camp said you said it, then there's something wrong. There's a right story, and then there's the two stories from both sides. So something doesn't add up. And I kind of tend to believe Adams more because hearing Joe Douglas say that Gase is a good coach just showed me he's a pathological liar. Unlike you, I have no faith in Joe Douglas. I think he lost all faith. At first, I liked the hire when they brought him in. I think his draft class stunk. I do. I don't like Mekhi Becton. He's already complaining and starting garbage on Twitter. If you don't like that, then, it is what it is. For a rookie to come out and start bashing an all-pro safety, I have no room for it. Go back to the kitchen and bake like we know he likes to bake and not play football, because obviously we draft guys with the first-round pick when we hate football. And the other denominator, and I want your opinion on this too, this is the worst year to have 2 first-round draft picks. Who knows if we're going to have a college season? Heck, who knows if we're going to have time to recruit these players and watch these players in combines and stuff. So with the COVID-19 virus, and we're going to get to that in a little bit with baseball, but this might be a bad year to have 2 first-round picks.
It's possible. I mean, we got to see how the year plays out. But all you can really do at that point is kind of look at what these guys have done in the past. I mean, there's going to be certain guys in this draft class that probably could have came out this year and stayed in college. So, that's going to be decisions based on management and scouting and all that. But the question I have for you is, you mentioned that the Jets didn't want to pay Jamal Adams. Do you think they didn't want to pay him because that's just how they go about things typically? Or do you think they didn't want to pay him based on the situation of the team? Because I think there's a little bit of both. But that's why I know Jamal Adams is worth every penny. I just think the situation of the team calls for they couldn't afford him and actually build a good team. So what's your thoughts on that? They couldn't do both is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think that it's a little bit of both. Number one, I think the Johnsons are cheap. I think that they have a tight cap on Joe Douglas. I think that that's a major reason why you saw them sign a bunch of backups instead of starters on the open market. But I think in the same token, they didn't value Jamal Adams as a $17 to $18 million per year player. I don't think they saw the position as a need. I think that they saw other holes in the roster. Let's face it, the guy who bashed Jamal Adams the most, Le'Veon Bell, won't even be on this roster next year. They're going to get rid of him. It's only a matter of time. I love Le'Veon, and I hope that he sees this. Listen, I'll post this on social media to him. I'll at him at this. You're defending the Jets organization that is ruining your career. Like, let's put that into perspective. Adam Gase is ruining your career. If you don't have a good year this year, they're going to cut you. You're not going to get that money on the open market, bud. So don't defend the team that is ruining your career. Look at what Jamal is telling you. Jamal is giving you insight as to what's going to happen. I can predict the future with the Jets. They never keep anybody good. They never want to win. They are okay with mediocrity. That's why the fan base is happy with this deal. Let's take the first round picks and let's run with them. Did you see the recent pictures of D. Milliner?
Yeah. No, look, I'm in agreement with you. Because you just hit the nail on the head right there, because it's true. I don't want to put myself in that crop of people who's like thrilled with the trade. Hey, let's get rid of this player. Because I said for months and months, why would we get rid of our first-round pick, who is Jamal Adams, for other first-round picks when we finally hit on a first-round pick? I completely understand that. I think the only reason I feel 50-50, and I'm being very repetitive here, it's because I actually do like some of the decisions that Joe Douglas has made. I did like the draft class. I do like some of the signings he makes because I feel like he's working towards the future. And this is my take on it. The Jets always are in a rebuild. They've been in a rebuild for 50 years. Okay? But they just never know how to go about it. And I'll say this. I think that Joe Douglas's approach to this rebuild, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this. You're probably not based on what you're saying today. But I feel like he's at least taking a better approach than some of these other people have done. When we brought in McCagnon, there was no rebuild. We were a bad team, and he just threw money at veterans like an old Darrelle Revis. Or I don't want to say washed up Brandon Marshall, but the guy was 30-plus years old. Antonio Cromartie, that's not how you rebuild. You don't just throw money at big-name free agents. Joe Douglas has taken a different approach to it. He's trying to, make up cap room. He's agents to one-year deals because I don't think he thinks that Adam Gase is going to be there. I really don't. He did not sign free agents that Adam Gase wanted for multiple years because he's looking at Adam and saying, dude, this is the last time I'm going to see you. Like, we might keep in touch on the phone, but you're not going to be walking into this office building much longer, this facility. So the guys that they've signed, Jordan Jenkins, one-year deals, I like that because Joe Douglas is looking at it and he's saying, we're not where we need to be. I don't like the free agents on the market. I'm not going to break the bank for guys who are undeserving. So I do like his approach to things. But yeah, I'm going to miss Jamal Adams. I loved watching him play.
But now let me kind of ask you this question. Do you really think that Joe Douglas is thinking that Adam Gase is leaving? This is his comment from the other day. This is just 3 days ago. Joe Douglas says that Adam Gase is the right coach to lead the New York Jets.
Yeah, but he also said that they had no interest in trading Jamal Adams either, so don't trust everything that Joe Douglas says. He's got to say that. If he's asked in a press conference how he feels about Adam Gase, your general manager, which is him, cannot say, yeah, he can't talk negatively about his coach. You're not putting yourself in a good situation there at all. So he might have made those comments, but he made comments that don't really correlate with his decision either. So I'm just not going to trust anything the Jets say anymore. We're just going to have to wait and see. So my belief is that he doesn't think Adam Gase is the guy, and he's going to be pressured by the fan base if Adams again this year, which isn't really a choke. Choking is probably considered when you're supposed to do well. He's not supposed to do well, so he's probably just going to do his part, which is bad. So, yeah.
Now, before we go to our next topic, because we could rant about this all day, I have one more question for you regarding the Jets. Now, you made a point about him building toward the future with these one-year deals and looking toward 2020. Why would you do that in the biggest year of your quarterback's development?
I know. I don't think we could really ever completely understand why the Jets do what they do. Listen, the Darnold situation, I think Darnold has potential. I really do. Do I think he's Patrick Mahomes potential as a first-round draft pick? No. But do I think if you're able to build around him, can he last for quite a few years and be the Jets franchise quarterback? Absolutely. I don't look at Sam Darnold as a bust. If Sam Darnold fails, it's going to be because the Jets failed him. There's a big difference. Mark Sanchez was a bust. He shouldn't have been picked where he was. He only had success because of the players around him. Yeah, he did a little bit, but I would not give him credit for really much of anything that he did. Darnold's so much better than that. He's so far ahead, talent-wise and in development, than where Mark Sanchez was. If Sam Darnold fails, it's because of the Jets. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be the same situation. They're not going to trade away Darnold, but I talked about before how the Jets failed to build around Adams. They're going to fail to build around Darnold. And as much as I see him being the future of the Jets, part of me that also sees them ruining his career. And that's just a trend of the Jets. So hopefully, because what I do want as a Jets fan, this sounds crazy, I want Darnold to have a nice year this year, but I still want Adam Gase to be fired. Like, I would like Darnold's statistics to be up there, but I just don't really care what the record is or anything. I want Gase gone. So I guess I'm kind of hoping that they do bad in a sense. I don't know.
It's such a mixed situation because you want Darnold to thrive. I love Sam Darnold, you know that, and I hope he does well. But in the same token, the coach they got in charge is like, you just want him gone. I wanted him gone from the minute they hired this guy. Like, I know I'm not optimistic in that regard, and everybody could say, oh, you're not giving the Jets a chance. You're not giving Joe Douglas a chance. Overall, I think they're going to ruin Darnold, and I hate to say that. They ruined what they had with the best safety in the game. They ruined everything since I've been born. it's just a common trend, and I can't get sold on them until Joe Douglas actually pulls the trigger on drafting a damn receiver in the first round. CeeDee Lamb was there, and they took the fifth best offensive lineman. I will never get over that. When CeeDee Lamb gets his Hall of Fame plaque, I'm gonna go to wherever the Hall of Fame, the ceremony, wherever it may be at that time, because who knows, they'll probably change it before then. And I'm just gonna sit there. And I'm gonna wear a shirt that says Joe Douglas, I was right.
So the first question you asked me, I guess this will be the last thing we say before we move on to another topic. But the first question you asked me today was, what was my, initial thought or reaction to Jets trading Jamal Adams? My initial reaction wasn't good. I was frustrated. I was the same way when I got the notification on my phone that we signed Adam Gase too. So it's just kind of a trend. You're right. They don't know what they're doing, and they make a lot of bad decisions. In this case, I'm just hoping that this is a decision that they made where both sides, I think, are going to win. Seattle's going to win, hoping that the draft picks pan out. But with that being said, I know we wanted to move on to basketball too because the season just kicked off. So you want to jump into that?
Before we do, quick thought on the whole NFL situation. What do you think of all these guys opting out? A lot of New England Patriots are opting out. We'll cover it really quickly, but what is your initial take on that, and where do you see the league going from here with all this going on?
So, players on sitting out, a lot of them had really good reasons. It could be past battles with cancer or family members with cancer, or maybe you have to do what's best for your family. That's the number one priority. It's obviously more important than your job. Family comes first. So I can't judge them on that. There have been some notable players, guys like Nate Solder, who's the Giants' left tackle. You had Damian Williams, who played a huge part in the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, and that actual game. You can even make an argument that did he win MVP? Patrick Mahomes won MVP, right?
Mahomes won it, I believe.
But you can make a case that Damian Williams deserved that award that night. You have guys on the Patriots like Patrick Chung, who's pretty well known, Dante Hightower. I believe the Patriots have now. So there have been some notable players. At the end of the day, they have to do what's best for their family. I don't know of any Jets sitting out or opting out yet. What's your take on it?
I think that we're going to see more guys opt out. I think it's just a trend. I don't know if you listened to it, but it was all over the sports world on Monday. Devin and Jason McCourty do a fantastic podcast. They talk about anything and everything. But the way they go about their business is very smart and sophisticated, and they don't attack people. They state their beliefs. And they were saying how afraid they were because they could take care of themselves. They're both in their 30s. They're very successful in their careers, but you can't control your teammates. It's not like the NBA bubble. We'll talk about the NBA bubble today, but it's not like you could say, okay, we're going from the field to the hotel and you're locked in. You don't know where these guys are going. Look at the Miami Marlins, and they're another team we're going to talk about later. Like, you don't know. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. I don't blame these guys for opting out, especially the ones with families or expecting children or illness in the family or whatnot. You can't blame them. And I think that the NFL is going to have to step in and say and do something about this and kind of regulate how they're going to go about their business, because I think that this could become a free-for-all, kind of like baseball is right now with the whole Marlins pandemic breaking out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out because, like you mentioned, the Marlins, the outbreak that they've had and how it's affected the season with cancellations and suspending their actual season, which we'll get to in a little bit. Basketball, with just getting underway tonight. I think that basketball has a really good plan. I think being in the bubble, really isolating yourself, getting away from the outside world. I think it's possible that their plan turns to a success and they get through the season. I'm sure they're going to deal with some problems. But for football, it's going to be interesting. There's definitely the most contact sport. We're going to see how the travel is involved with that, because I think travel is one of the bigger things that's happening with baseball right now. I don't think it's so much about the players going out. I think it's just the typical travel that they go about. You're still running into people. So yeah, that's my take on that.
I give the NBA a lot of credit, and you could say what you want about how they've handled it in terms of locking their players in essentially, but it's worked. And I think the main thing for them has been you don't have a full season to worry about. You're only worried about 8 scheduled games to get guys work, and then your postseason. So you're not doing it for 5 months like a baseball season or longer for a football season. You're doing it for a certain amount of time. And yeah, it's not ideal. You have families, you have different things going on in life. Obviously, you don't want to be locked in a bubble, but for these guys to get back on the court, it seems like they're all willing to do it. And it's been really good to see that they've had no cases, that everything's been working smoothly, and these guys are getting back into play. And I think it's a great job by the NBA. I think they really thought this through. Like you said, I think obstacles are going to obviously come along, but for the start of it, and I think they did a really nice job, and I think that they continue to do a nice job as they move along with this.
Yeah, I agree with that. And well, we'll get into a little bit later with baseball, but we jump into basketball now.
So now, let me ask you, what are you looking forward to in the NBA restart? What's your biggest thing that you're looking for?
I just love ball, so I do like how they got to pretty much, probably 3/4 of their season. So now they're pretty much almost jumping into the playoffs. You're doing these last 8 games, I believe it is, to really figure out the playoff seeding, and then you're jumping into your regular playoff series. So I'm excited for it. I know with the games kicking off tonight, you have the Jazz and the Pelicans, and obviously we know the Jazz have Rudy Gobert. He was the first person to test positive for COVID. He's the reason, at least I guess you could say he is the reason that the season was suspended. I'm sure most of them would have tested positive along the way as well, but he was the first one to do it. And then the second game is going to be the Lakers and the Clippers. LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, very well might be a preview to the Western Conference full year to see what the playoffs were going to be about, because I think it's an equal playing field. There's a lot of contending teams. So that's what I'm most excited about, is just watching basketball again and seeing 20 competitive teams go at it. What about you?
Well, I'm interested to see how the NBA is going to get Zion into the playoffs first and foremost. I think that's the main headline here. That guy could go to the bathroom and ESPN would give you a notification about it. It's kind of sickening. It's kind of annoying. I think he's the most overrated player in all of sports. But that's a topic for another day. I'm just excited to see how they're going to get him into the playoffs, because you know what's going to happen. But for me, the main thing is I don't really have I don't want to say a team here, because, I like the Thunder. I liked them when they had Durant. I'm interested to see how they do, but I really don't have that set team. And now that Durant's obviously not playing in the bubble, I really don't have any care to root for anybody. But like you said, I want to see Clippers and Lakers. I want to see those top teams go at it. I'm more interested in the East than I am in the West, if that makes any more sense, because I think there could be more upsets in the East, and I think it could be a little more exciting for us, especially in the playoffs.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of Nets fan, but I just know that the Nets are not at full strength by any means. There's no Kyrie Irving, there's no Kevin Durant, so they're pretty much just in it because record allows them to. But I'm not really excited to see the Nets, play. I'm more like to watch basketball as a whole. Like I mentioned before, I think there's a lot of competitive teams. I think it's an equal playing field. So. And I think it's going to be unpredictable for the first time in a long time. If you've watched the NBA over the years, especially the past decade, I'd say, between LeBron James' Heat and then with the Warriors and the Cavs the past few years, we always kind of had an idea, at least one side of the finals, of who it was going to be. We knew LeBron and the Heat were coming out of the East those years. Then we knew LeBron and the Cavs were, and on the other side, it was going to be the Warriors. This year, going into it, we don't know, and that's exciting. And you don't want anyone to test positive for COVID, because that's obviously going to suspend some games, and you don't want anyone's health to be at risk. But if that does happen, it's going to shake things up even more. It's like, what if LeBron James tests positive for COVID? What if Giannis tests positive for COVID? You could almost count those teams out. So this isn't just, well, may the best team win. It's going to be kind of the best team and the healthiest team win, because it's going to change things up.
That's a really good point, and you never know with the coronavirus what's going to happen. And they've done a nice job isolating everybody, but you just never know with the virus. It can attack at any time, and all it takes is one exposure, and you're done. But like you said, I think that there's a wide opening here. I think that in the West there's 3 or 4 teams in the West that could possibly compete for that spot in the finals. In the East, you could probably name 2 or 3 teams that have a good chance. And it's all going to come down to health, especially given that these guys are only going to be 8 games in. They're not in regular season form here. They're fresh, but who knows if they're going to stay healthy. So that's a big thing to look at. I just think overall the seeding is going to play a big role, because if the Lakers play the Pelicans in round 1, that's going to be a tougher matchup than somebody else they might have to play. So you might mix and match here. I think the scenes are going to be cool to see how it plays out. And I think that could ultimately have a huge impact on who moves on down the stretch.
Between basketball and also hockey, we'll throw in hockey, I think their approach to it, kind of this bubble, it's going to, obviously they're in isolation. They're away from society. So the part of it, in my opinion, that could allow them to get through an entire season. And that's one of the things that I'm excited to pay attention to. So, but we also have some in the New York area. The New York Knicks finally made a good decision. Do you want to jump into that one now?
I like how we started that with the Knicks made a good decision. The Knicks have a new head coach, and it is Tom Thibodeau. If you remember, Thibodeau was the head coach of the Chicago Bulls years back. I'm going to go through a little bit of a breakdown on him to give you a little more insight. 62 years old, from Connecticut. He was an assistant in the game for 20 years, started in 1989. Kyle, we weren't even born when Tom Thibodeau broke into the league. Spent 2 years with Minnesota, then he went 2 years with the Spurs, another 2 with the Sixers. Then his longest tenure as an assistant came with the Knicks. He was there from 96 to 2003. I remember the Knicks went to the finals, I believe it was 99. He was there. He was an assistant for that team. Then he spent 4 years with the Rockets, another 3 with the Celtics. He actually helped the Celtics win the title in 2007, 2008. He became the Bulls head coach in 2010. And he was a really good coach for them. 255 wins, only 139 losses. That's a .647 winning percentage if you were trying to count at home. Had 62 wins his first year. Was the coach of the year in the NBA. Never won less than 45 games. So he was impressive. I don't know why. And I'd have to look back as to why they separated. But Thibodeau goes to Minnesota. And he kind of stunk in Minnesota. 2.5 years there. Fired after 40 games. Into the 2018-2019 season. He is a defensive-minded head coach. He's a guy that made Joakim Noah the guy he was. He made the Knicks overpay for Joakim Noah too, which that's another story in itself. But overall, Thibodeau's a veteran coach. And I think that, and like you said, I like the move. Personally, that was my initial reaction to it. What did you think when you saw that notification come through?
Well, my initial reaction to it was the Knicks finally made a good decision, because I think it's pretty well known around the league that the Knicks are probably arguably at least, the worst run organization in the sport. They just don't make good decisions, and that starts at the top with James Dolan as the owner. He doesn't do a good job with his hiring of general managers, does not do a good job of his hiring of head coaches, free agency signings, draft picks. He's just not a good owner, and that literally starts from the top. I think he's a guy who clearly doesn't know what he's doing, but he still takes the reins or takes control of every situation. And sometimes you need to allow the guys who are more experienced. I think they're in good shape. Thibodeau, he has a nice track record. And you mentioned the places that he's been. Where I remember him most is being with the Chicago Bulls when he was with Derrick Rose during that MVP season, getting to the finals. I think they could have done more damage if Rose never got hurt. And then he coached some good players over there like Jimmy Butler, Carlos Boozer, Joakim Noah. And then he moves over to Minnesota the past few years, and he got Minnesota to the the playoffs, their first playoff berths in 2004. So that was big, and he coached a few good players there as well: Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns. So I think it was a good decision on their part. You know, as much as I think Thibodeau's a good coach, and I'm not taking anything away from him, there also is that question. You know, you've been around a while, but why do you keep moving place to place? You know, obviously there's got to be something wrong there to be moving from here to there. But overall, I like the decision. I think the Knicks hands. They just need to do a better job with free agent signings and, you know, just draft picks and spending their money wisely and efficiently.
The Knicks are not going to change until they land a big name free agent. And I think that's a tough thing to overcome. You look at this past offseason where Durant signed in Brooklyn. You know, you could have made the case that New York, well, the Knicks were the better fit for him. But he decided to go to Brooklyn because he saw a better chance to win. And you're not going to recruit guys if you're not going to put a winning team together. You know, every year it seems like the Knicks fans and the organization say, oh, this guy's going to be a Knick. Now it's Giannis. Oh, my goodness, he's going to be a Knick. Devin Booker. You can name it down the list. But until you land a superstar like that signs in free agency and says, you know what, I want to be here, you're going to have trouble. And maybe Thibodeau can recruit some guys. He's a well-known coach, a good coach. Maybe he can recruit some guys in to help the Knicks. But it's going to be a matter of putting together a roster that he could thrive with. You know, it's not a guarantee. You have to have the pieces in place, and the Knicks are going to have to do a better job of overall making the roster. Now, in terms of jumping around as an assistant, I think it's more common in the game than we think it is. If you say you branch out with a coach, right, and that coach becomes a head coach somewhere else, or even a high assistant, and they say, oh, you know what, this guy's a really good coach, we want to bring him in. That's a situation. Or if you're in a situation where the coach gets fired, you're looking for another job. That's where the branching really comes into play. So as an assistant, it really doesn't bother me. The thing that I look at was the stability with the Chicago Bulls, because like you said, I remember him as the Bulls coach. They had a couple of really good teams back then, and I think he's a fit coach. I think that if you look at the open market of coaches right now, he's the best one out there. So I think the Knicks got this right. As crazy as it sounds, I think they got it right.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points there. I wasn't really so much talking about assistant coaching. I was talking about head coaching. I know he hasn't jumped around too much as a head coach, but the point that I was trying to make, and like I said, it's not a big point that I'm trying to make, because I think he's a good coach, and I think the Knicks made the right decision. He was the best on the market. The way I looked at it, you know, why was he out of Chicago? And then why did he have such a short run in Minnesota? Those are my only things. But regardless, he's had success at the same time, and he's coached good players. And he made a good point as well. All it takes is that one big free agent to go there. Let's say they land a guy like Giannis. You're in New York, right? The spotlight, you know, it's a big market. You're playing at the Garden. You have Thibodeau as the coach. You have arguably the best player in the game. You know, the money's there. So that could completely transform an organization. I mean, look at the Nets. You mentioned them as well. You get Durant and Kyrie. They go from this, oh, yeah, maybe we'll contend for a playoff spot, to you're possibly contending for a title now. And it's that quick. But Durant is a great example of how bad the Knicks organization is right now, because there was always talk about him going to New York. He didn't go to the New York Knicks, which is like literally basketball in New York, and the Garden and the fame and the history. He went to Brooklyn because of the leadership and the ownership, and that's the biggest problem. It starts from the top. Your owner is so bad that players realize that, and they'd rather go to a team that's pretty much completely rebuilding, and there's no history really with. So I do think the Knicks got it right with Thibodeau, though. If you're going to start somewhere, start with the coach. See what he could do with the talent that he has. He has a good track record. There's a lot of trust in him. I'm sure he's going to be able to recruit players. May not recruit enough players to win a championship. We don't know how it's going to go, but you at least might get back into the playoffs. And as a fan, that's really all you could ask for, is you need to get in the playoffs and contend and to extend your season.
Now, the Knicks are in the middle of New York. They are the center point of New York during basketball season. You know, you could take the Yankees out of the equation, but come basketball time, the Knicks are the brand name. The Brooklyn Nets are building in New York, but the Knicks are what the fans know. And for players, it is such an enticing scenario to be in, especially if you're on the second half of your career. You're in New York where media opportunities and advertisements, and you can name it. You could keep going on and on. The opportunities are endless where you can earn additional finances by being in one of the biggest markets in the area in the world. But the way the Knicks are, like you said, and you made a really good point, they're like a dumpster fire from the top up, and that's a problem, and that's a real issue. My only thought about Thibodeau was if the Knicks thought they had a real chance at Giannis, I thought they would have hired Jason Kidd.
To be honest, I don't think the Knicks have a real chance at Giannis at all. No offense to Knicks fans, but it's the truth, and you mentioned it earlier. Every year you hear about they're going to get this guy, they're going to get that guy. It was LeBron, it was Durant, it was Kyrie, it was Zion. It just, they've had a lot of bad luck. Like, Knicks fans could relate very well to Jets fans. I don't think they really have a shot at Giannis. I think they might have shots at a few other players depending on who's in free agency. But a guy like Giannis, I think Giannis might re-sign in Milwaukee. I feel like he's kind of a loyal guy, and he knows they already have a good team. But once again, that's a situation where, time's going to tell how that's going to play out.
Yeah, and only time will tell, but I think that the way this is going to shape up is, do they figure out a way to attract a big name free agent? If they do, they're going to be in a good spot. They're going to figure it out. But until then, I think it's going to be the same scenario on that. So as we go into our final topic of the day, and now this is something that blows my mind. This is probably even worse than the whole Jamal Adams situation, but Major League Baseball is dealing with a very, very tough situation right now with the coronavirus. The Miami Marlins organization currently has 19 players who are on either their coaching staff or opening day roster that have come down with the virus. Also, their AAA owner passed away from the virus, and it is believed that the Marlins contracted the virus while they were in Atlanta. They were in Atlanta for an exhibition series, and apparently they went to a strip club where they contracted the virus. Now, this left a major impact on Major League Baseball because not only are the Marlins sidelined till next week, but it also sidelined the Phillies, Orioles, and Yankees because the Yankees were supposed to play the Phillies, who just played the Marlins at their home ballpark. And the Orioles played the Marlins, or were about to play the Marlins. So we're in a little bit of a sticky situation, and I think that, and I want your opinion on this, this is just the start of the coronavirus impact on the season. Do you think we actually get through 60 games in a playoff scenario here?
I think it's going to be tough. To be honest with you, I feel like this was inevitable. And that's also why I mentioned, and I'm not saying that basketball is not going to have any of these problems, but I think they just handled it the right way with this whole bubble situation and really isolating themselves from everyone else. Baseball, there's too much travel, and there's probably aren't good enough restrictors to go out. The fact that these guys were at a strip club, like, are there any team rules? Like, do you not telling these guys to stay in the hotel room or wherever they were staying? But with that being said, I think my biggest question is, are they going to cancel or postpone or suspend games or certain team seasons every time someone tests positive for the virus, part of the team or just really part of the organization and the staff? And if they are going to do that, when is enough enough? Like, how many games can you possibly suspend before you realize that you're not going to be able to play out 60 games, or this team might not be able to play out 60 games, because there's kind of a limit on how far you can't be playing into December. So that's what it's going to come down to. I know I read something earlier in the week that the Manfred came out and said that they were prepared for this. They expected this. And then Dr. Anthony Fauci came out and said he doesn't think the season's going to have to stop, but this could get a little out of control. Now, we did see the impact that it's had on the league already. The Marlins season is literally suspended. This stopped the Phillies and Yankees series. It was completely postponed. And because the Orioles were supposed to play the Marlins and supposed to play the Phillies, the Yankees and Orioles ended up actually playing. Their series started yesterday. So it's all over the place. And now they're talking have to play 56 games in 55 days. There's going to be double headers, which are no problem, but you're really packing on the games here. I love baseball. It's practically going to be every day for those guys. And that's the start of this. This is only a week in. 56 games in 55 days. What if this extends? My main question, when is enough enough? Like, what's that limit going to be?
Yeah, very interesting points there too. But I think that Major League Baseball saw this and they had an oh crap moment. And I'm not gonna curse on the air, but that it was an oh crap moment. It really was because they didn't think this was gonna happen so quickly. And now, I don't know if you saw it, there are new precautions that Major League Baseball is trying to put into play. If there are double headers, they're saying that they prefer one 9 inning, one 7 inning game, or even better, two 7 inning games to try to limit the amount of pitching used and whatnot. And then also, they're apparently going to hire advisors that are going to go with each club and kind of dictate what these guys do. So they're kind of have to babysit them on road trips because who knows? These guys are going out and they're impacting everybody else. And the scary thing to me is this. The Phillies, and I'm going to use Didi Gregorius as an example because I know a lot about him because of his time with the Yankees. Gregorius has past medical issues that if he contracted the virus, it could be deadly toward him. Now, the Marlins, knowing they had contracted the virus, agreed to play and put all those guys at risk. Like, at what point does it stop? How do you let a team make that decision and impact everybody around them? That makes no sense to me. Obviously, these guys made a bad decision by going out. Why let them make another bad decision?
Oh, yeah, and the fact that the worst team in the league is the one that's probably causing the most problems in the league, just shut down the Marlins. We don't even need them in the league to figure anything out. They're a waste of time. But, I hate to sound like this, but because I feel that these players testing positive I really don't see the season finishing. I really don't. I think there's going to be a point where it kind of gets out of control and they realize this is a mess and the season stopped. I hope it doesn't happen, but this happened like 5 days into the season already. 5 games into the season. There's series that are being suspended. There's teams' seasons are being postponed, cancellations. Players like even LeMahieu earlier on in the year, tested positive for it. Obviously didn't affect anything, just pretty much quarantined for about, 2 weeks or something. So, like I said, I hate to sound like that guy, but I just don't see them getting through the season.
Now,
unless they come up with some type of plan to get around this.
I think there's a plan that they could put into place that would help them get through the postseason if they actually get to it. Now, I might sound crazy, and please tell me if I'm crazy because I just want to hear your opinion on this. I've been thinking a lot about this. The NBA has done a great job with their bubble, right? They've kept everybody isolated. They kept everybody intact. They kept everybody within a respectable area. When they get to the postseason, you're going to have teams traveling all over the country to play games. I don't think that's feasibly possible. So here's my suggestion. You take one or two stadiums in Major League Baseball that have domes that are in areas where you can play, right? And you isolate everybody. You make an MLB bubble. And yeah, it stinks for the amount of time you're in the playoffs, but I think it would be the best scenario. And I get it. There's more teams involved in the playoffs this year, and home field advantage is a really big thing. But wouldn't you rather get through the postseason than have to worry about all these travel restrictions and so on and so forth? Take your regular season, finish up your regular season, isolate your players for a set amount of days and test everybody, make sure everybody's good to go, then start your postseason. It'll be an equal playing field for everybody involved, and I think it will give excitement. You could play 4 or 5 games on a field on a given day, and it spreads out during the day. So you have baseball all day. And I think it's good for the sport. You actually get through it. Obviously, you're limited as to where you could play, and a logical place would be Tampa, but Florida's in a train wreck right now. But you find 2 places to play, and American League goes here, National League goes here, and you find an alternate site for your World Series.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Uh, I think the whole bubble situation is a great idea. And in the playoffs, it definitely allows you to do that because you're only going to have 16 teams in the playoffs now. Um, but like I just lost my train of thought actually. But no, I'm in agreement with that. And once again, the biggest question is that's a great idea for the playoffs, but are you going to get to the playoffs? And that's the biggest problem right now. But I'm tired of people feeling bad for these players. Like, oh, you might have to isolate and be away from your family for a few months. Like, this is your job. You're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. You're going to be away from your family, protecting your health, and you're protecting their health to get through the season, get paid, and do your job. You're going to see your family in a few months. Like, feel bad for them. They're being treated like royalty at these places. So like, I'm tired of people saying, "Well, that stinks. They have to, they have to be in isolation for a few months." Listen, it's for the better good. Like, you're protecting yourself, your family, you're doing your job, and you're getting paid. Simple. Like, I'm tired of people like feeling bad for these guys. Like, they live the life as is.
So let me kind of rebuttal that. Do you feel bad for Mike Trout that he might not be there for the birth of his first child?
You got to put me in the spot like that. Listen, I know the birth of your child. I don't have a child, but it's got to be important. Obviously, well, not got to. It
It's
is
gotta
important.
be. Don't tell. Wait.
It's got to be
I
important.
hope your family is not watching because they will be like, Kyle,
No,
it is important.
no, it's important. The words came out the wrong way, but no. Listen, that's a decision. I mean, if he feels, and this may sound crazy, it's something he's going to have to figure out. But that okay? Well, the baby's expected to be due in 2 weeks. Well, then maybe quarantine for 2 weeks. Don't play, so you're there for the birth of your child, and another week or two off, or do the rapid test and find out if you tested positive right away. He's got to figure out it's bad timing, but I don't know when the child's expected. I don't expect the Angels to really go that far anyway, so it might be perfect timing for him.
Well, the baby's expected in August, and Trout's already said
Oh,
that
well,
he's
then,
leaving the team. He's going.
yeah,
So I first of all, I can't blame him. I understand where these guys were coming from. I wouldn't want to be, and I'm going to use him because he's a Yankee. I wouldn't want to be Garrett Cole and miss the first 5 months of my child's life. I
yeah,
wouldn't want to, and he's a guy that wants to play. So it's hard because you're torn. You're torn between your job that pays you very well and treats you like royalty, like you said, but that family aspect comes along. And for the NBA guys, it stinks. I get it, but it's a shorter time span. A lot of those teams are going
hmm
home after 8 games. It's not that long. So, I
yeah.
a lot of those teams, and they're going to dwindle down as time goes on. You might only have two teams that are in there for that majority of that time.
Well, exactly. It's going to come down to that player's decision. What are they going to do? In baseball, like for baseball, if his child is expected, I'm talking about Trout, if his child's expected in August, he might be able to still come back and have enough time to play, depending, how long it takes him to be out and what the position the team's in or the situation the team's in. So it's just bad timing in general. You're right about baseball, though. They do have a shorter time period to be there. Um, but once again, I sound repetitive, but it's going to be up to those players. It's your decision. No one's keeping you there. They gave you the option to play or not. So it could be a stressful situation, but the decision is in your hands.
And I, for one, am glad that that decision's not in my hands because that's a very tough thing. You dream your whole life about playing a professional sport and being a professional athlete, and then something like this happens where if you contract the virus, it not only impacts you, but your teammates, your family, it impacts everybody. And as much as you want to play, your family matters at the end of the day, too. So I think that it's a very tough predicament to put them in. But like you said, they're getting paid like royalty. So if you are playing, you are being compensated for your work. So it's a tight rope to walk on, to be honest. Now, as we kind of wrap up today's show, you have any final thoughts as to what we talked about? Anything, because this was a jam-packed show.
Yeah, it was pretty fun doing this type of show. Actually, just put it at Sports Center field, talking about three different sports and some big news. Definitely big news going on between the Jamal Adams trade, which was big news in the NFL and obviously big news for Jets fans and basically football fans of our area. You have basketball with the season kicking off tonight, and then also with baseball, the situation that they're in right now. Will the season continue? What's next? Teams and players. So I had a good time talking about this. I love talking sports, and I'm just happy live sports are back. I want to thank everyone else for tuning in, and looking forward to seeing you guys on here next week as well.
Now, my final thought for the day, and I'm going to go back to the Jets because I feel like I need closure on the whole Jamal Adams situation. I think that this is the best outlet to do it, and I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else other than you. So here's my thought on it, and here's my final take, and I'm going to keep this short. Jamal, simple. Thank you for the 3 years you spent in New York or New Jersey. It was a pleasure watching you. I never doubted your intention for the Jets. I felt like you always wanted to win. You wanted to put your best foot forward. I'm not like these fans that listen to the media. I take my own opinion on it. I watched you day in and day out. I love the energy and the effort you brought on a daily basis. Now, with that being said, I didn't like how you handled the situation. I think you could have handled it better, but I am always a fan. I'll show you the nice jersey again, just so you remember. I already ordered my Seahawks jersey. Don't judge me, but it is what it is. Now, to the Jets, do I agree with how you handled this? No. Do I like it? No. But I am going to give Joe Douglas a chance because I was told that I'm not giving him a fair chance. So here's my take on it. I'm going to give this guy a fair chance. I'm going to go from this point out, and I'm going to say, you know what? He's a new GM. He has a plan. I'm going to give him a couple of years to figure it out. Now, I'm getting old. I'm getting gray hair. I hate watching the Jets lose. But I hope this ship turns around, and I hope that he's in the right direction because if he don't hit on those draft picks, it's going to be ugly. And as always, now that I'm off the Jets, I hope that the virus kind of goes away. It kind of subsides a little bit so we can continue to talk about live sports like we did today. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. And you're right. It's basically the continuation of us talking live sports is going to come down to if the virus subsides or not, and even if it doesn't, are these leagues going to continue to play through it? And obviously, number one, I hope it subsides, and two, if it's not going to, I hope they continue to play through it and just find a way to get around it as best they could. Because I know, not just talking live sports, but I know everyone out there wants to continue watching it, and there's been I feel a lot more to do since the season started, and baseball season started, be it basketball starting up, hockey starting up, football hopefully in another month or so. So I'm excited for it, and I had a great time doing this show today.
Regardless of what happens over the next week, we will be back next Thursday night live at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live. You found us tonight. Find us in the same place on next Thursday. Again, follow our social media feeds at Delahanty Media on Instagram. As you're on right now, Let's Debate Podcast on Facebook. Also at Let's Debate Pod on Twitter. Find us on YouTube, Delahanty Media. Everything we have going on with the Delahanty Media brand is on there. You can check out my other show, Pinstripe Talk Podcast, on there. And all of our shows are streamed live on YouTube as well. As Kyle mentioned earlier in the show, check out our store. The information's below. The information's on our social media feed. You need it, hit us up. We'll definitely get you that link. A lot of nice gear on there. We hope that you continue to support our brand. Until next week, that's Kyle Delahanty. I am Nick Delahanty, and this is another episode of the Let's Debate Podcast. We're wrapping up. We can't wait to talk some more live sports with you next week. Until then, stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll see you then.